for joining us. It's lovely to see your faces. I hope you had an awesome holiday. So today we are chatting with Craig Desirens from who is the ED of Village Harvest, and he has many years experience with gleaning, lots of wisdom to share. Today's discussion kind of gives us a chance to pull back and see the big picture of where we fit in the larger food system, hunger relief system, so that we can kind of plan our path forward. And following that, we'd like to open up to a good 10 or 15 minutes or so of discussion. But first, I want to run through a couple of quick announcements before I hand it off to Craig to get us started today. So first, the advisory committee has a new chair. Rachel is stepping away for maternity leave. And we are welcoming Benji Absterchen of WSU Gleaning Program out in Port Angeles, who's doing an awesome job. Unfortunately, he's unable to be with us today, but I'm going to do a quick recap in his stead of what the advisory committee is working on. So we are, I'm going to share my screen here. Here, okay. We hope you guys can see this. We are working on.
Can I suggest that you zoom in?
Oh,
not that long.
This one. I don't know how to do
that. Okay, never mind.
Sorry.
Lean in if you can't see it.
Yeah, there we go. I hope that that's zooming in, but I will actually post a link to this as well, so you guys can look it over in your time. But we're working on a project plan to kind of compile a shared pool of gleaner knowledge as a resource for you guys, and we'll be collaborating with the University of Washington on a capstone project for their food systems, nutrition, and health program students to begin this work. So more details following that. Next, we'll be exploring how we might collaborate with the Common Fruit software as a resource for gleaners to get involved with this network. And we're actively putting together a proposal for the AGO Symposium coming up in May, focused on how the Washington Gleaning Network can become a resource for gleaners throughout the state. So more details follow on both of those. And as I shared my screen, we're working on a timeline of monthly meetings for the network inspired by the yearly growing and gleaning cycle. We've got a few folks booked for those chats so far, so where you see the green check mark, but I'll drop a link again to this graphic in the chat and include it along with this recording. But please have a look at this proposed timeline, and if you have any ideas for a topic or someone who might be a great fit for this topic, please reach out, and I will drop again the links in the chat here. Next, just wanted to confirm I may be stepping away from this role in some capacity. As many of you know, my term of service with AmeriCorps is ending in February, but be assured that Harvest Against Hunger is hiring a staff person to continue the work in this network. So that information will go out to all of you as soon as we have it. And very last announcement. Next month, we'll be hearing from Megan Moore of HopeLink to discuss reviving relationships with farmers for the upcoming season. A calendar invite has been sent to all of you, and the meeting will be posted to our website, our upcoming newsletter, and all that. So hope you guys can join. And that's all I've got for now. I'll go ahead and turn it over to
suggestion?
Craig. Yeah, go ahead.
Why don't we have everybody introduce themselves so Craig knows who's in the room?
Yes, please introduce yourselves. You can always drop something in the chat as well, but let Craig know who you guys are.
Why don't we start? Why don't you go ahead and start? We'll start with Eric and then work our way down, maybe just to make it quick. So there's a list up here. How about this? I'll say, because you've got to close your screen down. I'm asking you 5 things at once.
Oh no, yeah. Here we go. Here we go. Stop.
Why don't we start with Eric?
Yeah, definitely. My name is Eric Mora. I am the food bank director at the Blue Mountain Action Council Food Bank in Walla Walla, Washington.
Thanks, Eric. Let's see. How about Riley?
Hello. Yeah, I'm Riley Wilmar, and I am the program coordinator for City Fruit based in Seattle.
Thanks, Riley. Faith?
My name is Faith Whaley, and I'm the CTK Food Share and Farm Director. We have a nonprofit farm that grows food for 32 different organizations, and I'm based up in Whatcom County.
Indra.
Hi, my name is Indra. I work for African Community Housing Development. We operate 2 farmers markets in SeaTac and Delridge, and we distribute free produce, free basic needs, and do a lot of other community of kind of oriented distributions and yeah.
Okay, thank you. Leanne.
Hello, I'm Leanne Barron up in Skagit County at Skagit Gleaners, and I am the gleaning coordinator there.
Fabulous. Isabel.
Hey, I'm Isabel. I am the food access manager at the Ballard Food Bank, and so doing gleaning and home deliveries. Excited to learn more today.
Oh, we've got, hi, Elise. How about Elise next? Craig, you know Elise.
It's good to see you.
Hi.
Elise with Salem Harvest, harvesting food that would go to waste here in mid-Willamette Valley of Oregon, getting it to hands of hungry families.
Thank you. Ursula.
Hi, I'm Ursula, and I'm the operations director for Evergreen Produce Connection. We do free produce distributions in Pierce County.
And Stephanie. Oh, Stephanie usually is able to talk. Okay, we'll come back to Stephanie. Jody, hi.
Everyone, my name is Jody Pena. Oh, sorry. Hi, my name is Jody Pena. I'm the food program manager for HelpLink.
Okay, fantastic. And then, I don't know, Stephanie, if you're back. If not, we'll go to Olivia.
Hi, everyone. I am Olivia. I'm on the Harvest Against Hunger team. I'm the Farm to Community program manager. So not directly involved with gleaning, but a lot of the folks in this room are in our Farm to Community program.
Great. And, oh, Maria. Sorry, Maria.
Hello, also part of the Harvest Against Hunger team, and I'm the Harvest Assistant Program Director. So some members that do gleaning in the program.
Great. And Stephanie's in the chat introducing herself. But Craig, Stephanie is with Northeast Washington Hunger Coalition. They're in Colville, Washington, which is a fairly rural area up in, well, is a rural area up in Northeast Washington state. So pretty broad mix of different sized organizations, different geographic areas, different community types. And so I think this is a really good representation of sort of the broader network here on the call today. So thanks, everybody.
And it looks like Chelsea Woodside dropped in the chat as well. She's one of the program managers at HelpLink as well. So.
Okay, let's go ahead and Craig, go ahead. It's all yours. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's really a privilege to get to meet all of you, and I really appreciate David, your instigating the introductions, because as I was listening to everybody's organization and personal backgrounds, it's just an amazing range, and that's a lot of fun. I'm going to switch to a screen share of a few slides that I prepared, but I'm really here to share a few ideas. I certainly don't have any answers. I saw the description of what went out that Sarah sent in terms of big picture. And in some ways that's intimidating because everybody has a different sense of what that is. So one of the things for me that's fun about getting to meet all of you and as a network and as individuals is to really, I'm curious as to what big picture means for you. And so I want to make sure that, and Sarah will help try to nudge me on track so that we have plenty of time to really have a discussion after about anything that either my materials stimulate or that you can share some of your sense of what are the big picture issues for you and your organizations. Because I think that'll be, since it's January for all of us, that's another good sort of food for thought thing at the beginning of the year. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to switch to a presentation here. And hopefully the wonders of Zoom and sharing are working. David, can you confirm that I've got a screen?
They are. Yes, it
Okay.
looks great.
Great. So I'm just going to sort of flip through a few things. Let me introduce myself. I'm Craig Disarens. I'm the Executive Director of Village Harvest and one of the founding volunteers. And my background is out of Silicon Valley. I was a manager in various engineering and business capacities at tech companies for lots of years until ultimately Village Harvest took over my life. Village Harvest got started in 2001, so we're going to be 24 in April. And kind of looking back, it's a simple idea. It looks like it's about fruit, but what we've really learned is it's really about people. In terms of organizational scale, we do up to £250,000 a year from backyards and heritage orchards that remain in places like open space districts here in Silicon Valley. We have about 9,000 registered volunteers and 4,300 homes and orchards offering fruit. So that's influenced a lot of our scale and growth. And because we were 2001, we were also reasonably pioneer in the idea of sort of adapting the ancient idea of gleaning into a home and suburban environment. So one of the things that when Sarah and I were talking about, and she introduced the notion of systems thinking, and I think in the context of food recovery organizations, I've got a couple of definitions here that everybody can read on the screen. But for us and our kinds of organizations, the core of almost everything is actually pretty simple. It's just the notion of looking at the whole rather than the parts, and the sense that for virtually all of our organizations, if not all of them, they're incredibly dependent on relationships. That most of our none of our organizations are vertically integrated to the sense that they do everything. And I'm sure all of us can resonate with that sort of stuff. Another phrase that some of our founders coined at this point years ago was the notion of connecting abundance to points of need. And it's sort of a simple way to kind of grasp some of those kinds of things. So one of the things about big picture, so this chart is something that actually came out of some discussions nearly a decade ago that David and I and a few other organization folks had. And we were really trying to figure out what is this food recovery thing in the first place. So one of the big picture things is to take a really big step back and say, what is the food system and how might you actually have a diagram that was useful in one place? So this was sort of a creation out of that series of discussions. The core of this particular chart is the sense that the food system is very much an earth to earth kind of cycle, that things grow, whether it's plants or animals. A lot of stuff happens in the middle, and in the end, everything gets returned to the earth. Now, in terms of big picture, this particular chart, if you look at the US food system, it turns out it's on the order of $1.6 trillion. So in terms of big pictures, it's huge. It's about 6% of the gross domestic product, and it's 10% of the employment in the country. So this is the domain of food recovery on a really macro level. There are lots of different terms there on this chart. Lots of with 10%, 10% of employment in it. It's really representing a really huge thing. But the core for food recovery that many organizations are focused on is the sense of hunger relief. This is another kind of big picture set of stats. This is actually 2012 data that I compiled in 2016. And when I was, sort of looking at it now, I kind of realized it was big numbers back then. It's still big numbers now. It doesn't, in some ways, have to get super updated to have the context. This particular set of data comes from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It was the notion that there's this enormous fraction, volume of produce that's grown but not used. That was 58 billion pounds in their stats at the time. And in 2016, there were about 45 million people that were being tabulated as being food insecure. So as we've all probably experienced as insiders in this world, it's not a tiny fraction of the population that needs food. It's actually a very large number of people that at one point or another in their lives need some extra. And that's one of the focuses of many of our organizations. What was interesting when I was looking at this, along with others, was sort of putting together the sense of how much was unused, how many people, definitely needed more stable food. And it turns out it's a huge number, on the order of 1,000 pounds a person. So even on this level of thing, food insecurity which is probably another thing that many of us have recognized, isn't really a matter of whether there's food out there. It's a matter of distributing it and getting it to people in a way that's effective. And of course, in many cases, the sense of where the unused produce is and where the people are can be very different. And that's part of the challenge that we as organizations and individuals end up tackling. So let's look at another set of ideas that came out of these discussions. One of the things that I evolved, is I use the term gleaning in a very specific way, applying to produce and applying in the sense of touching ground or touching plant. So that's just for me a more specific way. But there are lots of different kinds of organizations that are playing in the domain of food recovery. Whether it's going out into a farm field, whether it's picking up extra by the truckload from a processing plant, whether it's getting sandwiches left at an office complex after a meeting and putting that to good use. Another related set of concepts, which are not quite the same, but are in the terminology soup, or the notion of food waste, which certainly in California is very tied to climate change as a motivation, not hunger relief. And there's a related set of things of foraging, which amounts to getting stuff for yourself as opposed to for others. So one of the concepts that's been very useful for me in working with other organizations was a very basic idea of what is food recovery and what differentiates all these different kinds of organizations and activities. And it came down to some simple ideas of what was the source, what was the destination, and if you knew that, then you could figure out the how. Okay? So source, destination, and how. And some related stuff that's really important in sort of designing and creating organizations is to know your why and to know the needs of your community or the particular direction that you're going. So let me show you, this was the food system. It's possible to design an organization that takes any one of the points in that entire food system as a source and connects it to any destination. Okay. So specifics that many organizations are involved in. There's the sense of what kind of food. the sense of where you're going to get a particular kind of food. You know, for Village Harvest, we do primarily homes or backyards with some non-commercial orchards. But I know Harvest Against Hunger does a lot of work with processing and packing houses in terms of its core sort of stuff. There are a huge number of organizations, certainly in California, and I'm sure in Washington State, that are involved in picking up surplus from retailers like grocery stores or farmers markets, things like that. And another class of organization that ends up taking food that's already prepared, whether it's at a restaurant or a caterer and so forth, and finding good uses for it. And then there's the sense of after you've gotten some of this abundance, where does it go, and for what purpose? One of the things that was useful for me in sort of looking at food recovery in a broader sense was to realize that there was a whole lot of food recovery going on that had nothing to do with hunger relief. In California, the dominant and now state-supported stuff is very much focused on climate change. And so there's a huge amount of activity in sort of retail level pickup, where the motivation is actually keeping things out of landfills where they generate methane gas. But the secondary benefit and challenge is that what's unsold at the grocery store and goes into a food pantry actually drives a lot of organizations and a lot of challenges, because that food is often very close to its sell by or use by kind of condition. There are organizations in the food recovery world that are very much profit oriented. One that many people may have heard of was a company called Imperfect Foods that was in the business of trying to take seconds out of commercial agriculture and sell that. I know there were some East Coast companies that I don't know the names of that were also involved in that. So there's the why in terms of food recovery isn't just social causes, but may actually be profit. There are quite a few organizations that I've run into that do gleaning or food recovery, but their real motivation is job training and life skills for people, or providing job opportunities for particular groups. So it's a very interesting universe in terms of the picture of how organizations have different overall motivations. Taking a look at applying this sort of idea and putting it in the context of your own organizations, there are various kinds of gleaning of produce. There's a huge amount of sort of picking up and collection activity that's now taken hold. Again, with the California perspective, it's become dominant and much more popular than any gleaning activity. And at least in urban areas, and be curious about all of your experiences, there are a set of small organizations that are doing prepared food recovery, which now is very state supported in California, because that's food that is very likely to end up in a landfill, and therefore for climate change reasons there's a lot of push to support that from a state point of view. Okay. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but one of the questions that I get a lot is people will ask about, will contact us and be interested in starting some kind of food recovery organization. And so I get involved in conversations helping out new organizers in terms of figuring out how do you do this stuff. And I'm sure many of you also experience that. With this kind of model, it's easy to see how you can sort of pick what's abundant where you are, overlay the sense of why you want to do it, and figure out good ways to do it. And so the sense of the source and the destination end up determining the how, and they also determine organization characteristics that are very important. And I've got one final slide that's a bit of a compare and contrast. It's obviously a lot too busy for me to go over a lot of detail, but for purposes of comparison, I took some representative kinds of food recovery activities, whether it was home or farm gleaning or retail pickup and food rescue, and looked at all the different characteristics that are often factors in those organizations. So one of the things that, as a couple of sort of things, if an organization is doing farm gleaning, the volumes may be very high, into many tons per day. A prepared food rescue group is picking up a few trays of food. So, tremendous variation in that. Using the food rescue example, the number of volunteers that's required and involved is actually quite small. But there's a lot of precision coordination that's required to basically go to, pick up stuff at exactly the right time and transport it safely for food safety reasons. So that is an example. The food safety consequences of that kind of organization are very high. So, another factor that lots of our organizations deal with is complexity. If you have lots of sources, lots of destinations, and high volume, then you're going to have a very complex organization. Whereas if you've got something that you can go to the back of a grocery store and pick stuff up, you can do it on a lot less complex of an organization. So all of these things are just things that, as I work with new organizations, it's kind of helpful to understand what's their motivation and to help them figure out the right kind of structure to be successful for what they want to do. I'm going to switch gears because I'm really curious to listen rather than pontificate. My contact information is in the presentation slides that you'll get, and I'd be very interested in staying in touch in whatever ways you'd like. So I'll open things and appreciate any comments, questions, and a sense of what are the big pictures for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Greg. I do have one comment. I think it's really interesting to consider why we're doing what we're doing in order for us to, it's January, it's the beginning of the year, we're starting to plan things out. And if we just start planning as we kind of on an autopilot as we have before, without really stepping back and starting with that big picture view, we may or may not be making a lot of progress. We have to really consider what are we doing and why are we doing it? So I love that you brought up that aspect of it. I would actually be really interested to hear from folks in the audience and from you, Craig, as well, how folks define gleaning, because I think, that as you said, kind of considering the why, once we understand why we do what we do and how we define what we do, then we can really understand what our goals are, and we can communicate those goals, and we can build the relationships that we need that help us get to those goals and so on. So yeah, be really interested to hear from folks what your definition of gleaning kind of is.
And I think, Craig, you started out with your definition for Village Harvest as being a little more specific than some of the food recovery ones. Is that right?
Well, so Village Harvest just started with people noticing extra fruit in backyards and thinking that there's got to be a good use for it. We were originally scrounging fruit to provide fruit to the 4-H to make jam. And we very quickly realized that there was a seemingly infinite amount sitting around suburban backyards. So we just started and did things, and then we kind of looped back. But the reason I've chosen to distinguish gleaning in a very specific way is that, for example, a farmer's market pickup operation in terms of all of those organizational factors that I described is radically different than picking fruit from a backyard or a farm. So it's not a judgment call in terms of good or bad. It's only that from an organization characteristic, they're radically different, and those kinds of operations don't have a lot in common other than the final commodity in the destination. So they may have some purpose, but as organization types, they're pretty different. So I've got the hands going up. David, I'll let Sarah, you and David facilitate. I've got Elise has a hand up here.
Yeah,
you can facilitate just fine, Craig.
I just wanted to let everybody know, like, share my thought of what gleaning is, or harvesting unused produce, because that is exactly how we describe it here at Salem Harvest, is like, we are harvesting unused produce. And so, yeah, we have made it very narrow for ourselves just so that we keep on mission and on task. Is we get food from backyards or farms, and we take volunteers and we harvest it. And it's rare, but we have sneaked a little bit to the farms where they've already harvested it. We'll go pick it up. But we won't go to farmers markets or any place where it's been for sale someplace else. But we will go to a farm if they've harvested it and it's just sitting there and they don't have a buyer now, or whatever happened, then we'll go pick it up and get it to hungry families through our distribution system. But yeah, so we keep it very narrow just so that we can stay on task and not have that, what we call mission creep.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I was just about to say mission creep or scope creep. Because then it also impacts the resources that you need in order to do something. So if you're able to stay narrow with that mission or that focus, you can really start to develop some boundaries around the resources that you need. But if you start to broaden it, going back to the chart that Craig showed, you're then going to have higher impact or on your organizational resources to do certain things that maybe you were not necessarily equipped to do because you had a certain business model that you were using.
Yeah, on that note, sorry, Leanne from Skagit Gleaners here. So gleaning is in our name. And so our term has become very broad, I feel like, because we do food rescue, we do hand harvest gleaning, which is what I'm in charge of. We do community donations. We also have like a thrift store type of area. So it's like, we need to get really specific in our terminology. So it's good to like have that frame of mind as we're looking at how to more accurately communicate all the things that we do.
Back to, sorry, Elise again, back to what Leanne was just saying. Yeah, the word glean gets really broad and gets stretched to a lot of different things per Craig's table, which I really appreciated. Thank you for sharing that, Craig. It's like, I mean, going to, a lunchroom and picking up leftover food that's been prepared and delivering it somewhere else is considered gleaning, but it's so far from what we do and everything. We don't even use the word glean in our language just for that purpose. We use the word harvest because we want to be very specific with everybody that, yeah, this is an action where you actually have to go and pick it. No grocery store pickups, you're just going to get a box of stuff. It's, yeah, you're going to have to come out and work.
Anybody else have any thoughts regarding that? Or, going back to maybe Craig's initial question, which is, what does your system look like? And I know we've got a broad variety of systems per se, in a number of different factors. So, if anybody wants to be brave and be the first to talk about their system, it might be interesting to facilitate a little bit more of that. You guys know I'm terrible with awkward silences too.
Yeah, I'll say a few things. So our gleaning system is kind of has been reliant pretty heavily on our Vista AmeriCorps members. And as we're coming to the end of our cycle, I think trying to find a way to make it sustainable is something that I'm working on. Kind of bringing somebody on to manage it for us. That's the thing. I mean, it requires so much work. Just the logistics of it. Like setting up those relationships with farmers, which does take a lot of work. Bringing in the volunteers to do the work, keeping them engaged. It is really a big task. And so we're working on ways to make it sustainable for us. And our vistas have helped us with that. And now it's our job to make it sustainable, like I said. I see a huge opportunity though. There's a lot of, I mean, we live in such a produce rich area that not taking advantage of gleaning opportunities feels, like a missed opportunity. So that's definitely something that's in our future, especially as the need has gone up. We're going to see the end of the We Feed WA program here at the end of the state fiscal year, which has brought a ton of great produce into our system. So, we can't necessarily meet that dollar for dollar in the market. So we're going to have to find a way to gain access to more produce and freeze a good price, right? Yeah, that's definitely something that's going to have to be a part of our portfolio.
Thanks for bringing that up, Eric. I feel like, something Craig and David and I have all like talked about before, and I think we've all talked about this to an extent, is like what is kind of the value of gleaning, right? Like there is a value of gleaning, obviously. We're all here, we're doing this, and it's a beautiful work. But like is the value of gleaning like in numbers? Maybe not so much. Like it's not necessarily enough to fill up a food bank. It's not necessarily like in tandem with other things, it could help solve issues within the hunger relief system, but like not necessarily by itself. So what's really the value? And like when you're building a program and you're considering how to get buy-in from partners and how to get funded and how to set it up, you want to consider that why, like Craig was talking about. And we talked a lot about how gleaning isn't necessarily about numbers. It's more about building relationships and being part of the community, and those sort of ripple effects we can begin to tell stories with that come from the things that we do. So I don't know, just my thoughts there. I would love anyone to elaborate on that, but a great topic.
Mhm.
I agree with Sarah on that. Like, it's not, I mean, when you look at the big picture numbers of the millions of pounds that's needed and blah, 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 blah. Something that we love here is we stress that it's not just food, it's fresh, healthy, locally grown food. So that makes a difference for our supporters anyway, that they really want that to be available for people who can't afford that. They want to have them, and they want that option for everybody to be able to eat fresh, healthy, local food. And so we really stress that. And then we also stress access to that food, be it the volunteers who come out to harvest, they can have access to that food, as well as families who can't afford or can't come out to harvest. So that's just one little thing, the caveat that we love to lean on.
And out of curiosity, when it comes to, again, getting back to the systems, the broader system, is anybody doing work related to building advocacy or developing community advocates as part of the gleaning activity that you're doing? That's one of the values of this hands-on, the gleaning work. We're engaging people who want to do this work. And so how do we sort of create really good ways to develop community advocates, not only to support the work that we're doing, but also to really highlight it and lift it up among their different communities. Not necessarily just legislators, like I'm talking small a advocacy, not formalized meeting with your legislator, council member, whatever, but advocacy across the community and the work that you're doing. Like, are people thinking about that as part of their system work?
Yeah, I'll say for us, 100%. After going to the AGO conference, I came back with some really great ideas, as far as reaching out to local church groups, reaching out. Obviously, we're in an area with three higher education institutions, and we've worked really closely with one of those institutions to build out a gleaning team. There's no reason that we can't go out to the others. So yeah, that's definitely been a part of our conversations of what groups can we go to where the mission feels tied to what they're already doing. Not only to get volunteers, but to get donors. Maybe I go to a farm who isn't super interested in allowing a bunch of college kids to come on their property, but maybe they'll allow their fellow church members, kind of that kind of thing. So yeah, kind of thinking outside of the box in that way. And yeah, I got a lot of that from the conference for sure.
And it looks like we just got like a couple of minutes left here. So I want to respect everybody's time, but just gonna call out. It's 10:42. We got about 3 more minutes.
Okay. Bear with me while I do this, but Faith, I'm thinking about your approach to how you're engaging. I think you do a phenomenal job of engaging people with the work that you're doing at CTK Food Share. And I like, if you have any thoughts, and again, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I just think you do wonderful work up there in terms of the advocacy and really building community champions in kind of the work that you're doing. So if you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear.
And I was going to start talking, and then Sarah started talking, so I was like, oh, never mind. Yeah, I think we are constantly, and I think the more that we can put ourselves into the community, we're doing a lot more advocacy just for people, and awareness really is our big thing, especially recently. Whatcom County Bellingham Food Bank is one of the largest growing need in Whatcom County or in Washington State right now. And so just watching, I work with 32 different organizations, and just watching them, struggle to have enough for all their people. We're doing everything we possibly can to help them in that. And just telling that story is going to be a huge focus for me this year. I've been doing it for a few years now, but just trying to rally different people. And I just love meeting whoever I can and seeing if they have any interest in what we're up to, and being a part of that, and creating different ways for groups or organizations to get involved with us. We make it super easy or more difficult if people want to do more long-term stuff. But I think that's been a huge thing to me, is like, if I can get you to be doing something with me, then that goes long-term, because then people bring their friends, and like it grows. Or they tell people about it, which then gets people interested in a different way. So yeah, and just creating the systems that work for people to be engaged, or food to get where it needs to be. All of that is a lot of the work that I do up here.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Promise not to put you on the spot. I try not. We're gonna land the plane, right?
Yeah, we got like 1 more minute.
Okay. I would just say, like, Craig, I've known Craig for years and years and years and years, and always like been a big fan of the approach. And I love the tools that you shared in terms of taking a step back, because we all get wrapped up in what needs to get done today in order to get to tomorrow. But Craig, I think when you put it in the context of systems thinking, it's really helpful for us to every now and then take a step back and really do that sort of an assessment, even maybe on an annual basis. But for those organizations that are maybe just getting started or trying to figure out what are next steps, those tools that you shared are really valuable, I think.
Yeah, awesome. Well, with that, thank you guys so much for coming today. Thank you, Craig, for coming and chatting with us. This has been a really interesting conversation. And I know our meetings are a little bit short, but it really just gives you so much food for thought. And I feel like this kind of thing is so inspiring. So yeah, I will, add the recording to this to our YouTube channel, send it out in the upcoming newsletter and so on. But you guys, if y'all need anything at all, please reach out anytime. Happy to be part of what you're doing. And thank you guys for the work that you're doing. It's amazing. So have a lovely rest of your week, and we'll see you guys in February.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Thank you, everyone.
And
That's
Craig,
good to
you're
see you.
welcome to come to any future meetings, Craig.
Okay, thank you. I'll probably do that.
It was good to see you, Craig.
Thanks, Elise.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.